Hi there, my name is Chantell Davis and I'm from Dominion Church in Somerset West. And I want to use this opportunity to strengthen you today, to remind you of God's promises. And some of you might have been through a tough season where it felt like you have lost your joy, your hope, perhaps your finances or dear relationships. Perhaps the enemy has just been having a field day with you and you feel like Job. But I want to encourage you with this, because in 1 Samuel chapter 30, from verses 6 and 8, God speaks to David and he says to him, pursue the enemy. You will overtake him and you will recover all that you've lost. And that is the word that I want to encourage you today. Pursue, you will overtake, and you will recover that you've lost. So what happened here is just a backstory, is David was anointed king years before already. But the problem was that there was someone on the throne, and that was King Saul. And Saul wanted to protect his throne with all of his might, and he was willing to kill David for that. So David was fleeing. All through these chapters, we see his life just fleeing, even though he had the ability and the capacity, an opportunity to kill the king. He said to himself that I will not touch God's anointed. And there he found himself not being welcomed in the nation of Israel. So he joined forces with King Achish of the Philistine army. And so they gave him and his 600 men that was with him, they gave him a compound, a place where he could stay, and they called that Ziklag. And from there they went out to fight. And one day after they came back from one of the wars that they were encountering, they came to Ziklag and they saw that everything was burned to the ground. There was nothing left. There was not the sound of a baby crying. There was not the sound of a woman. There was no evidence of their livestock, nothing. And the men, the 600 men with David, they were in anguish. They were crying, tearing their clothes. They were angry and they were ready to stone David. Now, you might be in a leadership position or a position where you have casted the vision that God has given you. But in a moment of turmoil or trouble or grief, those closest to you might even want to turn against you. And it's vitally important what we do in that time, where we want to just cry out to God, where we want to feel like giving up ourselves. Because David was in pain. His 2 wives was gone, his children, everything that belonged to him. But a vital key was he remembered to strengthen himself in the Lord. So what he did is he went and he reminded his soul of who God is. He reminded himself of every previous victory that God has brought him through. And I want to encourage you to be reminded of every victory that you've had in the past, to know that the obstacle, the mountain that is standing in front of you today, it will not overcome you. My God shall supply all of my need according to his riches in glory. And that should be our portion. And God says, stir yourself up in your most holy faith and pray in tongues. And that's what David did. And once he has done that, then he went and he inquired of God. And he said, Lord, what must I do right now? Shall I overtake? Shall I pursue these band of raiders that took all of my wives and all of my livestock? Shall I pursue them, and will I eventually overtake them? And God came back with an answer. And he said to him, you must pursue. So there is an instruction, it's an order. Because when we want to get back what the enemy has stolen, we cannot sit back. You can't sit back in your setback. It's time to step back, right? You have to move forward. You have to advance. And in that, he gathered the men and he got a word from the Lord. It's important that you have a word from God, because his word never fails. Opinion of man can change, but never God. And then they pursued, and God said, you will surely overtake, plus you will recover all that you've lost. So there was a promise, and he gathered his men, he strengthened them, and they pursued this Amalekite army. And at the end of the day, when they got there, they found them in their weakness. They found them where they were drunk, partying. They were enjoying all of the spoils that they took from David. And in their weakness, David and his men went and they indeed overtook them, and they recovered all. Not one woman or child, nothing was lost, and they even got some spoils of war. And with that, I want to encourage you today that God is for you. He wants you to pursue your dream. He wants you to pursue the purpose that he placed in your heart. He wants you to take action, massive action. And then he says that you will recover all. Remember, don't sit back in your setback. Take this word today where the Lord said, you have to pursue, you shall overtake, and you will recover all that you've lost. I pray that you will go and meditate on this. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 30. This is your year of victory in Jesus' name.